My jealous sister smashed my first trophy, swiped my college essay to claim my place, hijacked my wedding with a fake pregnancy, and had everyone cheering for her. So I cornered her at the clinic, shattered the illusion, and left her begging for forgiveness after the ultimate Uno reverse. I was 7 years old when my older sister Emma rejected me as a family member, all because school came pretty easy to me. Not just academically either, but the sporty side too, especially cheerleading. I remember coming home with a trophy from a competition I had won, and my sister was livid. She was the first one I told. "Look, Emma, look what I got!" But instead of accepting my hug, she took my trophy and literally threw it out the window. But 7-year-old me kept trying. It wasn't until I painted a picture and watched as she not only tore it into pieces, but painted a new one that looked just like it, that I finally gave up. But I never stopped wanting to be her best friend. I was 17 when she asked to read my college essay, and I thought it was finally happening. Emma wanted to bond with me. I had no reason to be suspicious because she was 2 years post-high school and had no intention of going to college, or so I thought. I was using the family computer to submit my application when I saw it. One tab left open. I skimmed through it and saw my essay had already been submitted, except not under my name, under Emma's. Tears started streaming down my face, but I didn't have time to cry. I only had 3 days left until the deadline closed, so I wiped my tears away and spent those 72 hours speed writing a completely new one. Long story short, I got accepted, but Emma didn't. That incident burned what was left of our sisterhood down to the ground. So after I moved out for college, I only saw her during the holidays, and even then, we'd barely talk. But I was still happy for her, because after that failed attempt, she started to turn her life around. From her Instagram, I could see that she had finally gotten her esthetician license and the summer body she always dreamed about. I wanted to reach out to congratulate her, but I wasn't even sure if she knew I followed her and didn't want her to block me. But 3 years later, she did it herself. It was my first day as a registered nurse, so I posted a photo of me and the other girls in the staff room. Immediately, she called me and asked why I didn't invite her to my college graduation. I told her the truth, that I didn't want her to sabotage it. There was silence for a while, and I swear I thought she hung up. But that's when she whispered a meek, "I'm sorry." An awful gut feeling washed over me, but I told myself that giving her a chance was the least I could do, and immediately said, "It's okay." "No, Ella, it's not. Are you still living in Chestnut Hill?" I told her yes, and she began insisting on buying me dinner at the local diner, just like old times. Every part of me wanted to say no, but my imagination was running wild. I thought of me and Emma, gossiping on a couch together, drinking lavender tea, having the friendship I always dreamed of. It was that same image that made me say yes. Our catch-up was actually pretty positive, but far from the image that I had imagined, because she spent almost 90% of the conversation talking, more like bragging, about every single positive thing she had done since we last talked. She started off by telling me about her eyebrow-threading business success and how she had learned to swim. But after an hour had passed, she even started bragging about how she had once donated a whopping 1% of her paycheck to charity. I didn't even get to talk about my role as a nurse, or how I had gotten engaged to the love of my life. But I thought I'd be a bad sister if I let that be the reason I cut her off. So at the end of her 3-hour-long monologue, I told her I forgave her. We decided that Friday was our day, and for the next few months, we spent every week doing one new thing together. Pottery class, museums, everything. So when my fiancé proposed, Emma being my maid of honor seemed like a no-brainer. In the months leading up to it, she helped me with everything. The wedding dress try-on, the invitations, even the flower picking. And despite her passive-aggressive comments about how it's so weird that I was the one getting married first, or how she'd look way better in a wedding dress, I never saw what was coming next. On the day of the wedding, everything went smoothly. And when my husband, Alan, said, "I do," I felt my eyes light up with a spark of joy I hadn't experienced since childhood. Even as we all sat down to eat, I was still smiling. And that's when I heard someone tapping a champagne glass with their fork. It was Emma. Immediately, her speech started off with how happy she was to be there and how far she'd come. But then, things took a dark turn. She took out a stack of printed photos from her purse and started distributing them around the table. When I looked at it, my heart was filled with a darkness that rotted my soul. It was an ultrasound. "That's right, everyone, I'm pregnant," she announced. I didn't even know she had a boyfriend. Everyone gasped. Alan turned to look at me, and my acquaintances awkwardly clapped their hands together. I just stared at her and her completely flat stomach with an unwavering rage. My hand was shaking a little, but I managed to tap it with my spoon to get everyone's attention back. "Thank you, Emma, for that unexpected announcement," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But today is about celebrating our marriage, so let's continue with the planned toasts." I signaled to my best friend Jessica, who was supposed to give a toast after Emma. The rest of the reception continued with this weird tension hanging in the air. Some guests kept glancing at Emma's stomach, probably trying to figure out if she was really pregnant. Others kept throwing sympathetic looks my way. My parents looked completely uncomfortable. Dad fidgeting with his tie and Mom plastering on that fake smile she uses when she's trying to pretend everything is fine. A few of Alan's relatives were whispering among themselves, clearly confused about what had just happened and why the mood had suddenly shifted. After we cut the cake, Emma came up to me with this innocent look on her face. "Aren't you going to congratulate me?" she asked, like she genuinely couldn't understand why I might be upset. I pulled her aside to a quiet corner near the gift table where no one could overhear us. "Emma, I know that's not your ultrasound," I told her. I pointed out how the name started with a J and how the date looked old. "Why would you do this? Today of all days?" She just laughed it off, flipping her perfectly styled hair over her shoulder. "Don't be ridiculous, Ella. You're just jealous because now I have something you don't." Then she walked away to chat with some of my college friends, probably to tell them more about her pregnancy. Alan found me standing there, still processing what had just happened. He put his arm around me and told me not to let Emma ruin our day. "This is about us," he reminded me. Not her. He was right, of course. So I put on my best smile and tried to enjoy the rest of my wedding. We danced. We laughed with friends. We thanked everyone for coming. But I couldn't completely shake off that feeling of betrayal. The next morning, I woke up feeling a mix of emotions. I was happy to be married to Alan, but still angry about Emma's stunt. We were leaving for our honeymoon that afternoon, a week in Puerto Rico that we'd been planning for months. As I was packing the last of my things, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. Emma told us about the baby. We're organizing a family dinner to celebrate when you get back from your honeymoon. So exciting to be grandparents. I stared at my phone in disbelief. She was really going through with this lie, but I decided not to deal with it right then. I deserved to enjoy my honeymoon without Emma drama. I turned off my phone and focused on the trip ahead. Puerto Rico was amazing. Blue ocean, perfect weather, and a whole week without thinking about Emma. Alan and I explored Old San Juan, went snorkeling, and spent lazy mornings ordering room service. It was exactly what I needed. But reality came crashing back as soon as we landed back home. My mom called almost immediately, asking if we could come to dinner the next day to celebrate Emma's pregnancy. I told her I was tired from traveling and needed to unpack, but she insisted. Family comes first, Ella. Your sister needs our support right now. I hung up feeling that familiar knot in my stomach, the one I always got when dealing with Emma. Alan suggested we just skip the dinner, but I knew that would only make things worse. So the next evening, we reluctantly drove to my parents' house, both of us dreading what was sure to be an uncomfortable experience. When we arrived, the place was decorated with congratulations banners and little baby items. Emma was sitting in the middle of the couch like a queen, accepting congratulations from our extended family. Aunt Martha was even knitting a tiny yellow hat. Emma wasn't showing at all, but she kept rubbing her stomach and talking about morning sickness whenever anyone looked her way. I pulled my mom aside in the kitchen while she was arranging a platter of cheese and crackers. Mom, I don't think Emma is actually pregnant, I told her quietly. The ultrasound she showed at my wedding wasn't even hers. My mom just gave me this disappointed look, the one that always made me feel about 10 years old again. Ella, I know you and your sister have had your differences, but this is taking things too far. Why can't you just be happy for her? I couldn't believe it. After all these years, my mom was still taking Emma's side without question. I tried explaining about the name on the ultrasound and the date, but she just shook her head, her lips pressed into a thin line of disapproval. Emma explained all that. It was her friend Jennifer's ultrasound that she grabbed by mistake. She showed me her real one yesterday. Of course she did. Emma always had an answer for everything. I rejoined the party feeling defeated. Emma smirked at me from across the room, and I knew she could tell Mom hadn't believed me. Throughout dinner, Emma dominated the conversation with talk about baby names and nursery colors. When someone asked about the father, she vaguely mentioned a guy named Thomas who was traveling for work, but very excited about the baby. After dinner, Emma cornered me in the hallway on my way back from the bathroom. Nice try talking to Mom, she whispered, but no one's going to believe you over a pregnant woman. That would make them look like terrible people. She patted my arm condescendingly. Don't worry, I'll let you be the godmother. I just stared at her. Why are you doing this, Emma? What do you gain from pretending to be pregnant? She shrugged, adjusting her blouse. Maybe I just wanted something for myself after you got your perfect wedding and perfect husband and perfect career. Then she rejoined the party, leaving me standing there speechless. The next few weeks were surreal. Emma's pregnancy became the focus of all family conversations. My mom called me daily with updates about Emma's fake doctor appointments or the fake vitamins she was taking. Emma even started a baby registry and regularly posted bump photos on Instagram, though her bump looked suspiciously like she was wearing a maternity top with what looked like a small pillow shoved underneath. I tried to focus on my life with Alan and my job at the hospital. We were settling into our new routine as a married couple, trying to figure out which side of the bed was whose and whose turn it was to do the dishes. But Emma's fake pregnancy was always there, hovering in the background like an annoying fly I couldn't swat away. About a month after the wedding, I ran into Jennifer at the grocery store, the same Jennifer whose name I thought I'd seen on that ultrasound. We weren't close friends, but we'd gone to high school together and occasionally commented on each other's social media posts. I decided to take a chance. Hey Jennifer, how's it going? I asked, trying to sound casual as we both examined the same display of apples. Good, just busy with the baby, she replied. 3 months old now and finally sleeping through the night. My heart raced. You have a 3-month-old? That's wonderful. Do you have pictures? She pulled out her phone and showed me photos of an adorable baby boy with chubby cheeks and bright eyes. I asked a few more questions, establishing that she'd had her ultrasounds at the same clinic where I worked. As we were about to part ways, I took a deep breath and decided to be direct. This might sound weird, but did you by any chance give Emma one of your ultrasound photos recently? Jennifer looked confused. Emma? Your sister? No. Why would I do that? I explained about Emma showing an ultrasound at my wedding with a name starting with J. Jennifer's expression changed from confusion to anger. Wait, when was this? About a month ago? When I nodded, she continued. I lost an ultrasound picture around that time. I thought I just misplaced it. Emma visited me a few weeks before that to do my eyebrows. She must have taken it from my purse. I felt a weird mix of validation and disgust. I'm so sorry, Jennifer. Emma's been telling everyone she's pregnant. I knew something was off. Jennifer was pretty upset. She told me Emma had recently tried to friend her on Facebook, but she'd ignored the request because they weren't close. Now it all made sense. Emma was probably worried Jennifer would see posts about her pregnancy and realize what was happening. I left the grocery store with my mind racing. Now I had proof. But what was I supposed to do with it? Confronting Emma directly hadn't worked. My parents didn't believe me. I decided to talk to Alan first and figure out a plan. That night, I told Alan everything. About meeting Jennifer, about the stolen ultrasound, all of it. He suggested we invite Jennifer to the next family dinner so she could expose Emma herself. But that felt too dramatic, like something from a reality TV show. Plus, I didn't want to drag Jennifer any further into my family mess. I need to find more concrete evidence, I said. Something Mom and Dad can't ignore. The opportunity came sooner than I expected. The next day, Emma called me asking for a favor. I need you to come with me to my doctor's appointment tomorrow, she said. Mom can't make it, and I'm nervous about the sonogram. I nearly dropped my phone in shock. Emma never asked me for help with anything. This had to be a trap, but it was also my chance to catch her in her lie. So I agreed to pick her up the next morning. When I arrived at her apartment, Emma was dressed in a flowy top that made it impossible to tell if she had a bump or not. She seemed nervous, which was unusual for her. We drove to the clinic in awkward silence. I kept glancing at her, trying to figure out her angle. Was she going to fake an emergency? Pay someone to pretend to be her doctor? At the clinic, Emma checked in with the receptionist. I heard her give her name and appointment time. The receptionist typed something into her computer and then looked confused. I'm sorry, but I don't see an appointment for Emma Wilson today, she said. Emma's face flushed. That's impossible. Check again. It's at 10:30 with Dr. Thomas. The receptionist shook her head. We don't have a Dr. Thomas at this clinic. Are you sure you have the right place? I watched as Emma's confidence crumbled. She fumbled with her phone, pretending to check her calendar. I must have gotten the dates mixed up, she mumbled. Pregnancy brain, you know? As we walked back to the car, I couldn't help myself. So, no appointment, huh? And no Dr. Thomas either. Interesting coincidence that your fake baby daddy is also named Thomas. Emma glared at me. The appointment got canceled, obviously. They just forgot to call me. Cut the crap, Emma, I said, feeling bolder than I ever had with her. I talked to Jennifer. I know you stole her ultrasound. Emma's face went pale, but she recovered quickly. I don't know what you're talking about, and I don't know any Jennifer. Really? The Jennifer whose eyebrows you thread? The one with the 3-month-old baby? The one whose ultrasound you showed at my wedding? We reached the car, and Emma suddenly looked deflated. She leaned against the passenger door and crossed her arms. Fine. So what if I'm not pregnant? What are you going to do about it? Tell Mom and Dad? They'll just think you're jealous. Why, Emma? Why go through all this? What's the point? She looked away. You wouldn't understand. You've always had everything come easy. The good grades, the sports, the career, now the perfect husband. I just wanted something that was mine. Something special that would make everyone pay attention to me for once. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After all these years, she was still using the same excuse for treating me terribly. So you thought faking a pregnancy was the answer? Do you know how messed up that is? She just shrugged. It worked, didn't it? Mom calls me every day now. Dad's already talking about setting up a college fund. Everyone cares about me for a change. I felt a mix of pity and frustration. But what's your endgame here? You can't be pregnant forever. People are going to expect a baby eventually. I'll figure it out, she said dismissively. Maybe I'll say I lost it. That would get me even more sympathy. That's when something in me snapped. All those years of trying to please her, of making excuses for her behavior, of hoping she'd change, it all felt so pointless now. I'm done, Emma. I'm done trying to have a relationship with someone who only cares about herself. I'm giving you one chance to come clean to everyone on your own. If you don't, I will. She laughed, but it sounded hollow. No one will believe you. They never do. I drove her home in silence, my mind working through what to do next. I needed more than just Jennifer's word against Emma's. I needed something concrete that my parents couldn't dismiss. Over the next week, I did some research. I talked to a colleague at the hospital who worked in obstetrics. Without mentioning names, I described Emma's behavior and asked for advice. My colleague, Susan, listened carefully. That sounds like pseudocyesis, false pregnancy. Or more likely, she's just lying for attention, Susan said. Either way, she needs help, not an audience. Susan suggested some resources for dealing with family members who exhibit manipulative behaviors. She also mentioned that in real pregnancies, there are certain medical details that are hard to fake. Armed with this information, I decided to set a trap at the next family dinner. I texted my mom asking when Emma's due date was supposed to be, pretending I wanted to plan a baby shower. Mom replied that Emma was due in late January, making her about 14 weeks along now according to what she'd told them. Perfect. At 14 weeks, certain things should be happening if this was a real pregnancy. I did my homework, preparing a list of questions and facts that only someone who was really pregnant, or a nurse like me, would know. The family dinner was at my parents' house again. Emma arrived wearing a maternity top with what looked like a small pillow shoved underneath. She'd clearly been researching too, because she immediately started talking about how the baby was the size of a lemon now, which was actually accurate for 14 weeks. During dinner, I carefully steered the conversation toward pregnancy details. Have you felt the baby move yet, Emma? I asked innocently. She nodded enthusiastically. Yes, all the time. Little flutters. I smiled, knowing I'd caught her. That's strange, since most first-time moms don't feel movement until at least 18 to 20 weeks. You're only 14 weeks, right? Emma's eyes widened slightly, but she recovered quickly. The doctor said I'm very in tune with my body. Some women feel it earlier. And how's your morning sickness now? Second trimester usually brings relief, I continued. Much better, she replied, looking relieved at the easy question. And what about your Doppler results? Heart rate in the normal range? I threw in some medical terminology intentionally. Emma hesitated. Yes, all normal. What was the heart rate? The normal rate, she repeated vaguely. Which is, I pressed. I don't remember exactly. 1 something. My dad, who had been quietly eating his lasagna, looked up. Emma, when is your next appointment? Maybe your mother and I could come along. Emma looked panicked for a split second. Oh, it's not for a few weeks. And it's just a routine checkup. Nothing exciting. I decided to go for broke. You know, as a nurse, I find pregnancy so fascinating. The hormonal changes, the development stages. For instance, did you know that at 14 weeks, your HCG levels should be starting to decrease while your placenta takes over hormone production? What did your doctor say about your levels at your last blood draw? Emma stared at me, clearly having no idea how to answer. My mom looked between us, her brow furrowing in confusion. Emma, my mom prompted. What did the doctor say? I don't really remember all the technical stuff, Emma stammered. They said everything looks good. That's the important thing. My dad put down his fork. Emma, Is there something you're not telling us? Because Ella seems to know more about your pregnancy than you do. Emma's face flushed red. She stood up suddenly, her fake bump shifting noticeably with the movement. I need some air, she said, and rushed out to the backyard. My mom looked at me accusingly. What are you doing, Ella? Why are you upsetting your sister? I took a deep breath. Mom, Dad, Emma isn't pregnant. She never was. The ultrasound she showed at my wedding was stolen from a woman named Jennifer who has a 3-month-old baby now. I ran into Jennifer at the grocery store and she confirmed it. Emma's been lying to all of us. My parents exchanged looks of disbelief. But why would she do that? My dad asked. For attention, I said simply. The same reason she's been trying to overshadow me our entire lives. My mom started to defend Emma again, but my dad put his hand on hers. I think we need to consider the possibility that Ella is right. Remember how Emma couldn't tell us which hospital she was going to deliver at? And how she never mentions her doctor's name the same way twice? My mom's eyes filled with tears. I just wanted it to be true. A grandchild. I know, Mom, I said gently, but living in this fantasy isn't helping Emma. She needs real help. Just then, the back door opened and Emma came back in. She'd been crying, her mascara smudged under her eyes, and the fake bump was gone completely. Fine, she said, her voice cracking. I'm not pregnant. Are you happy now, Ella? You've ruined everything, just like you always do. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might actually break through my ribcage. I wasn't expecting Emma to confess so quickly after I cornered her with medical facts. The room went completely silent for what felt like forever. Mom sat there with her mouth slightly open. Dad was just staring down at his half-eaten lasagna, and Alan kept looking between Emma and me like he was watching a tennis match. I ruined everything? I finally said. Emma, you faked a pregnancy. You stole someone's ultrasound. You lied to our entire family. And somehow I'm the bad guy? Emma just glared at me, mascara still running down her cheeks. You always have to be the center of attention. Perfect Ella with her perfect job and perfect husband. I just wanted something for myself. Mom finally found her voice. Emma, how could you? Do you have any idea how excited we were about this baby? I've been knitting blankets. Your father started building a crib. Dad looked up, his expression harder than I'd ever seen it. I canceled a fishing trip with Karen to help you paint the nursery next weekend. Emma's face crumpled a bit. I could see she hadn't fully thought through how her lie would affect everyone else. I was going to tell you eventually, she mumbled. I was planning to fake a miscarriage in a few weeks. A miscarriage? Mom gasped. Do you have any idea how insensitive that is to women who've actually gone through that trauma? I watched my mother's face change from shock to disappointment to anger in the span of about 10 seconds. For the first time in our lives, I saw my mom looking at Emma the way she'd always looked at me when I complained about Emma's behavior, like she was seeing something she didn't want to believe. I think you should leave, Dad said quietly to Emma. We all need some time to process this. Emma's head snapped up. You're kicking me out? But what about Ella? She's the one who embarrassed me in front of everyone. Dad pushed his chair back and stood up. Ella exposed a lie, a terrible, hurtful lie that you've been telling for over a month. That's not the same thing. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After decades of my parents making excuses for Emma's behavior, they were finally standing up to her. I felt a weird mix of vindication and sadness as I watched Emma grab her purse and storm out. The front door slammed so hard that the family photos on the wall rattled. No one knew what to say after she left. Mom started crying silently. Alan put his arm around me. Dad just sat back down and stared at his plate. I'm sorry, I said eventually. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. Mom wiped her eyes with her napkin. No, Ella, we're the ones who should be sorry. We've let Emma get away with treating you badly for years. We always thought it was just normal sister stuff, but it wasn't. Dad nodded in agreement. We should have stepped in a long time ago. Maybe if we had, it wouldn't have come to this. We finished dinner in awkward silence. When Alan and I got home later that night, I collapsed onto our couch, emotionally drained. Well, that was a disaster, I said. Alan sat next to me and pulled me close. Maybe, but it was a necessary one. Your sister can't keep manipulating everyone forever. She needed this wake-up call. The next few days were quiet. No one heard from Emma. Mom called me daily, still processing everything that had happened. She kept asking if there were signs she'd missed over the years, incidents I'd never told them about. I shared a few stories, the trophy throwing, the essay stealing, but I didn't want to dump 30 years of resentment on her all at once. She was already beating herself up enough. About a week after the dinner explosion, I got a text from Emma that just said, "Can we talk? Coffee at Riley's Cafe tomorrow at 3? I showed it to Alan, who immediately said I shouldn't go. She's just going to manipulate you again, he warned. Nothing good will come from it. He was probably right, but I decided to go anyway. Some small part of me still hoped for that sisterly relationship I'd always wanted. I told myself this would be the absolute last chance. One more disappointment, and I was done for good. When I arrived at the cafe the next day, Emma was already there, sitting in a corner booth with 2 cups of coffee on the table. She looked different somehow, less polished than usual. Her hair was in a simple ponytail instead of her usual perfect blowout, and she wasn't wearing much makeup. Hey, I said, sliding into the booth across from her. You wanted to talk? Emma pushed one of the coffee cups toward me. I got you a caramel latte. You still like those, right? I nodded, surprised she remembered. Thanks. We sat in awkward silence for a minute or two. I wasn't going to make this easy for her. Finally, Emma took a deep breath. So, I've been seeing a therapist, she said, staring down at her coffee. Just 2 sessions so far, but it's been eye-opening. That was literally the last thing I expected her to say. A therapist? Since when? Since Dad told me I couldn't come back home until I got help. She looked up at me. He was pretty serious about it. I tried to hide my shock. My parents had always been so passive when it came to Emma's behavior. This was a major change. Anyway, Emma continued, my therapist thinks I might have some kind of complex about you. She says I've been competing with you our whole life because I never felt good enough. I didn't know how to respond to that. Part of me wanted to say duh, but I bit my tongue. I'm not saying it's an excuse, Emma added quickly. I know I've been awful to you. The pregnancy thing was just the latest in a long line of terrible things I've done. Why did you do it? I asked. I mean, I get wanting attention, but faking a pregnancy is pretty extreme.
dream, Emma sighed. Honestly, when I saw how happy everyone was at your wedding, I just snapped. I wanted that same happiness directed at me, and once I started the lie, I couldn't figure out how to stop it without looking like a complete psycho.
So you were just going to pretend to lose the baby? That was your exit strategy? She nodded, looking ashamed. Like I said, I know it's messed up. My therapist had a field day with that one. I sipped my latte, trying to process everything. So what happens now? I don't know, Emma admitted. I'm trying to work on myself. I'm staying with my friend Quinn until I can face Mom and Dad again. They're pretty devastated. They are, I confirmed. Mom keeps asking if there were warning signs she missed. Emma winced. There were plenty, if anyone had been paying attention. She paused, then looked directly at me. I am sorry, Ella. For everything. Not just the pregnancy lie, but for all of it. The trophy, the essay, ruining your wedding day. I've been a terrible sister. It was the most genuine apology I'd ever heard from her. Still, I wasn't ready to just forgive and forget. I appreciate you saying that, I said carefully. But Emma, you've hurt me so many times. Words only go so far. I know, she said quietly. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. Or ever, really. But I'm hoping maybe we can start over somehow. I thought about all the times I'd wished for a real relationship with my sister. All the times I'd extended an olive branch only to have it snapped in half. Did I really want to set myself up for more disappointment? I think I need time, I said eventually. I'm glad you're getting help, but I need to protect myself too. Emma nodded. That's fair. More than fair, actually. We finished our coffees and parted ways. No hugs, no promises, just a simple goodbye. As I walked to my car, I felt lighter somehow, like I'd put down a heavy backpack I didn't know I was carrying. Over the next few months, things slowly started to change. Emma continued with therapy, twice a week according to Mom. She moved back home temporarily but was looking for her own apartment. She even sent a handwritten apology letter to Jennifer about stealing the ultrasound photo, along with a gift card for baby supplies. Jennifer texted me about it, clearly shocked by the gesture. Emma and I established a cautious relationship. Not close, but not hostile either. We text occasionally, mostly about neutral topics like new Netflix shows or restaurant recommendations. She came over for dinner once, and it went okay. She even asked Alan about his job, which was a first. The biggest surprise came about 6 months after the fake pregnancy revelation. My parents invited us over for Sunday dinner, and when we arrived, I noticed something different about the living room. All the family photos had been rearranged. Where there used to be mostly pictures of Emma, there was now an equal number of photos of me, my graduation, my wedding, even some childhood pictures I'd forgotten existed. Your mother found these in the attic, Dad explained when he saw me looking at them. We realized we hadn't displayed them properly before. It was a small gesture, but it meant a lot. During dinner, my mom actually asked about my work at the hospital, showing interest in my career in a way she never had before. Dad mentioned he was thinking about taking Alan fishing sometime. Emma sat quietly through most of the conversation, but didn't try to redirect attention to herself. After dinner, Emma asked if I wanted to see her new apartment. I agreed, and Alan said he'd stay behind to help Dad with some computer issue. It was the first time Emma and I had been alone together since the coffee shop meeting. Her new place was small but neat. No fake baby bump in sight, no ultrasound photos on the fridge, just a normal apartment for a single woman in her 30s. It's nice, I said, looking around. I like the paint color. Emma smiled slightly. Thanks. I'm trying to be more independent. My therapist says I need to build my own life instead of trying to copy yours or get attention from Mom and Dad. I nodded. That makes sense. I got a new job too, she added. Still doing eyebrows, but at a bigger salon. Better pay, better hours. That's great, I said, and I meant it. I wanted Emma to be successful in her own right. As I was getting ready to leave, Emma handed me a small gift bag. It's nothing big, she said quickly. Just something I saw that made me think of you. Inside was a simple silver photo frame. The picture inside was one I'd never seen before. Me at about 7 years old, holding a cheerleading trophy, with the biggest smile on my face. Where did you get this? I asked, genuinely surprised. Mom had it in an old album. It was taken right before she didn't need to finish the sentence. Right before she threw my trophy out the window. Thanks, I said quietly. This means a lot. I'm not saying everything is perfect now. Emma still has her moments of selfishness, and I still find myself bracing for the worst sometimes. My parents are trying harder to be fair, but old habits die hard. Sometimes Mom still makes excuses for Emma's smaller behaviors, but things are better, different. We're all trying in our own ways. Emma's still in therapy. I'm learning to set boundaries. My parents are recognizing their role in enabling Emma's behavior for so many years. Last week, Emma texted me about a pottery class she signed up for, asking if I wanted to join. I remembered our sister days from before the wedding, how she dominated every conversation, how everything had to be about her. But I also remembered how much I'd always wanted a real relationship with my sister. So I said yes. Maybe this time, with all of us doing the work, things will be different. Maybe we'll never be best friends, but we might finally figure out how to be sisters. Real ones, not just in name. I don't know what the future holds for me and Emma, but for the first time in 30 years, I'm cautiously optimistic. And that's something I never thought I'd feel.
Wife divorced me and went on a vacation with her affair partner, assuming she will still get a part from my parents' huge trust fund. But what she got was a lawsuit instead. Hi. I'm Aaron, 30M. So, I'm just going to try putting it all down here. For all my life, I've known that my friends were friends with me because, according to them, I'm the trust fund baby. They always tried getting close to me because they thought I'd be throwing lavish parties all around the world and sponsoring booze at parties, and they always left me when I turned out to be nothing like that. It's true, my parents have a huge trust fund for me, but I know how hard they worked for it, and I know that the wealth wasn't built in a day, and one mistake could absolutely ruin my father's company. So, I work hard every freaking day. I work hard to expand what my father started, but recently, I was very close to making that one mistake. Ashley, the love of my life, my wife, Ashley, 28F. Throughout college, I didn't date anybody. I'm not the type who dates or hooks up with women casually. I always wanted to date to marry, but when the news about my parents' wealth spread, I attracted all the wrong kinds of company. You see, when you have money, you become popular, and people want to live off you. I did lend money to some of my friends and sponsored the occasional booze, but nothing extravagant, nothing that people expect from a trust fund baby. I believe that doing something in moderation isn't bad and, in fact, is important because you need to be a part of society too. So, I tried being in everyone's good books but rarely trusted anybody. During my graduation party, I met Ashley. She didn't seem to know me, and I started casually talking to her, and we really hit it off instantly. We exchanged phone numbers, and on our first date, I took her to McDonald's, and we had the time of our lives. She didn't seem to mind that the first date wasn't anything fancy, and I fell in love. Ashley was the first love of my life. She wasn't boring and didn't seem to be trying hard to impress me. She was just being herself. Also, she was really smart. With her, I felt normal and seemed to get an image beyond my money. After 1 month of dating, when I took her to meet my parents, she didn't act surprised at all and seemed to accept that I was rich with nothing but neutrality. I took that as a positive sign that my wealth didn't faze her at all. At that time, it didn't occur to me that she probably wasn't surprised because that was part of her plan from day one and that she absolutely knew who I was and knew how I wasn't dating anybody, so winning me over was all a carefully crafted strategy. She was full of elegance during her meeting with my parents. She was charming, and I was head over heels in love. She was the first girl I ever brought home. My parents were very excited for me. We dated for a year, and during that time, she never accepted any costly gifts from me. Her reason for refusing was simply that we weren't married yet. I proposed to her after a year. She was an absolute sweetheart to my parents. She told my parents that she only had one request, that they never ask her to leave her work because she wanted to work to expand our fortune. My mother hugged her and said that they were glad I had found such a supportive wife. Ashley worked in an IT company and made a decent amount of money herself. On our second anniversary, my parents hosted a party. There, they announced that they wanted to give a gift to Ashley and proposed including her name as a beneficiary along with me. They went around introducing Ashley to everybody, including Rob, the trustee. He was an accountant on behalf of the company that looked after the legalities of the funds and investments. He was married and had a daughter. His wife was a lawyer in the same firm. Everything was taken care of, and my wife's name was included as one of the beneficiaries. Ashley bonded really well with my parents and was always doing her best to keep them happy. She also worked and traveled a lot for her job. Later on, I'd come to know that she was traveling with her affair partner. Whenever my parents threw a party, she was always eager to attend and look stunning. On countless occasions at such parties, I've seen her talking to Rob in a corner, laughing a little too much, blushing, with wine in her hand. And as stupid and blind in love as I was, it never once occurred to me that I should suspect her of having an affair with Rob. But all this time, these two were having an affair behind my back. Looking back at it, I'm surprised at Ashley. She's an absolute pro actor. She treated each of us so well that the mere thought of ever suspecting her seemed blasphemous, but she was just biding her time. Almost 7 years into our marriage, my parents passed away within 6 months of each other. I absolutely immersed myself in my work because it was just too difficult to deal with all the emotions when you also have to keep the company running, and that was the first time in years when Ashley started showing her true colors. After the funeral, she was distant. I thought maybe she was dealing with grief in her own way and tried giving her space. She didn't say one word to me about my parents passing away or ask how I was. I thought it was strange but secretly blamed myself for being unable to talk about how I felt either. About 2 weeks passed before I decided to get home early from work and talk it out with Ashley. I bought a bunch of pink roses on my way back. I had my own key, so I let myself in and came face to face with Rob. I was confused, so I asked him if he came to talk to me about the trust or something. Ashley came out from behind with 2 suitcases. It was then I noticed that even Rob had 2 suitcases. Ashley looked at me and said, "Oh dang. I meant to do this quietly. I was meaning to leave a note and let you know that I'm moving out, but I guess we have to do it face to face now." "Yeah, so? I'm leaving you." "Yep, you heard that right, and yeah, I'm moving in with Rob after we return from our vacation in Italy. Your parents made sure that I'll get enough money to afford it. Also, we're divorcing. Rob is also going to file for divorce. Now, don't look like a forlorn puppy. Are those flowers for me? I'll take them. Thanks. Ciao." They were out of the door even before I could ask her to wait. I heard the engine revving up, and then silence, and just like that, my wife of 7 years left me. Have you ever heard the expression about the world crashing down in front of you? Well, that best describes what I felt. For 2 days, I didn't leave the house. I didn't open the blinds. I was surviving on refrigerated food and then cup noodles. I never turned the TV off because I was scared of the silence. I didn't even feel like bathing. On the 3rd day, someone rang the doorbell. I thought that if I didn't open the door, they'd probably go away eventually, but that didn't happen. The bell kept on ringing, and whoever it was pressing the bell harder and longer with each go. 10 minutes went by, and still, the ringing didn't stop. Now, there was someone banging at the door. I heard a woman's voice say, "I know you're in there. Open up. Right now. I'm not leaving till I talk to you." For a minute, I thought it was Ashley, but then I remembered that she was vacationing in Italy with Rob. This thought brought a fresh wave of sadness over me, but the knocking and banging wasn't stopping, so I dragged myself out of bed and started unlocking the door. I opened the door to find a red-haired woman in a 2-piece suit. She looked like she would bite my head off. She said, "Your wife ran away with my husband. Sitting here and being a wuss won't help anybody. So, get up, go take a bath, and get yourself in the living room in 15 minutes. We have to talk about a lot of things." When I didn't respond, she let herself in and looked me straight in the eye and said, "What? You stink." Before heading to the bathroom, I said, "Okay, Mom," and she screamed back, "I heard that." Despite myself, I laughed. I started feeling a little human after my bath, and when I returned to the living room, it was spotless, and so was the kitchen. Sandra, Rob's wife, introduced herself. She told me that she had been trying to reach me at my office for the last 2 days but couldn't get through, so she finally decided to show up at my doorstep. She meant business. I couldn't believe what she was telling me. Sandra said that, like me, she didn't suspect that Rob was cheating on her, and she only found out when he left the house 2 days back and said that he would send his assistant to collect the rest of his things. Like me, her world was shattered too, but she didn't wallow in self-pity. She started digging up dirt. The first thing she did was go through Rob's laptop. He stored his work stuff there, but he had his Facebook logged in. She wasted no time going through his chats and finding out with whom he was having an affair, and once she was sure, she swooped like a hawk. She had gone through every document related to my trust fund and was pretty sure that Rob was taking out money for his own use. It started small, so that it went unnoticed, but eventually, he had become bold and careless because he was being aided by one of the beneficiaries, who was none other than Ashley. A part of me wished that she was lying, but she wasn't. Sandra had all the proof and was ready to take them down. I was still hesitating when Sandra said, "I have a little daughter. I will wring out every single penny from Rob, and I will absolutely wreck Ashley. I don't care what you think. I just wanted to inform you. You don't have to be a part of it if you don't want to." I saw how determined and confident she was, and I instantly knew I could trust this woman, so I was on board. We shook hands. As my ex-wife was vacationing in Italy, we were hatching a plan that was going to cost her dearly. Ashley and Rob were back from their 10-day trip to Italy. Sandra and I were waiting for their call because we wanted to see what their reactions would be when the penny dropped. It was a Monday, and I was at work when I received a call from Ashley. As soon as I picked up, she launched into a rant. "What the hell is happening? What does Rob mean that we're in trouble, and where's my money?" I said, "You mean my parents' money that Rob was using to buy you gifts and probably that apartment you've moved into? I hope you heard from my lawyer. It's Sandra, Rob's wife, who, by the way, also works for the firm." I told her I had to go and hung up before she could say a single word. When I got out of work that day, Ashley was waiting outside. I pretended not to notice her and walked toward my car, but she blocked my way. In my whole life of knowing her, I had never seen her so ruffled by anything. She asked me to explain things to her because, apparently, Rob's anxious retelling of the events wasn't making sense, and she wanted to hear it from me in layman's terms. I told her that I had heard from her lawyer about the divorce filing, the only thing being that she wasn't going to get a single penny. Oh boy. The look on her face. Never in her wildest dreams did she think this could be happening. I could see the panic grow inside her. I was filled with sadistic pleasure, and in the next moment, an overwhelming sense of guilt for putting her in this situation. I still loved her, and it's difficult to watch the person you love getting hurt. I had to get out of there quickly so that she couldn't manipulate me. I walked past her and started moving toward my car. I heard her screaming from behind. She was asking me to stop. The last thing I heard before I got in the car was, "How could you do this to me?" I felt it like a stab and wanted to lash out so badly and say that I could ask her the same damn question, but instead, I got in my car and drove off. I could see her looking after the car, absolutely bewildered, in my rearview mirror. Meanwhile, Rob had been served with a notice that he was going to be terminated from the company. He was spoiling the reputation of the company, and apparently, The news had leaked, and a lot of clients had called asking to terminate their contracts. So, the best the company could do as damage control was fire Rob. Sandra had a lot of lawyer friends and arranged for the best lawyer, and she was sure of winning the case and getting custody. I was getting all these updates from Sandra while driving back home. I felt much lighter. I came back home and wrote this up. My interaction with Ashley left me feeling very restless, and I wanted to vent. Do you guys think I'm going too hard on Ashley? In reality, Ida? Update 1. Hi everybody. I'm back with an update. It's been a week. Thanks for your support, thanks for pulling me up when I was feeling so confused. I had my first therapy session, and I showed him this Reddit post, and he said it's a good way to cope. He said it's natural to grieve the person you lost, in this case, Ashley, so it's only natural that I was feeling so overwhelmed after I dropped the bomb. As for what happened this week, I'm going to try to summarize it for you all. Ashley called me again. This time, her tone had softened. Her voice sounded muffled, like she had been crying. She asked me if I had dinner. When I said no, she said, "Do you want me to come over and cook it for you?" I was taken aback. I think she took my silence as a yes because, next, she said that she would be at my house in half an hour. I finally found my voice and said, "No. No, you won't. Are you kidding? After what you've done, you want to come here, cook me dinner, and play house?" She cooed, "Baby, no. I know things have been bad, but we can talk." I was losing it then. I think I shouted at this point and went, "Bad? You call what you did bad? Just bad. It was evil. It was brutal and selfish. To hell with you. I don't ever want to see your face again. WTF is wrong with you?" Next thing she said made me want to throw up. She asked me to stop overreacting. I think it was a turning point for me. The guilt over hurting her had been eating away inside me, but at this point, I saw her real face. A woman who didn't regret her actions one bit and would do it all over again in a heartbeat. The call was a move to try to manipulate me. A trap. She was oblivious to my realization and was going on about how I was making her out to be a gold digger in the lawsuit, but how untrue that was because she was earning and had a job herself. I wanted to point out how I had paid all of her student debt, so if she was living comfortably now, it was because of me and my family. She said that the only reason she wanted to come over was that she thought we should talk and get back together and I should withdraw my lawsuit because it was pointless. I couldn't help myself from asking, "What about Rob?" She said that Rob was just someone different, and she was having an affair with him because he brought a change to her monotonous life. Then she started blaming me for being away for work and for never being there for her. She said her affair with Rob was passionate, and I lacked it very much, and instead of apologizing to her, I was giving her a lawsuit. At this point, I was convinced that she was trying to give me an ear bleed. I told her that if she had been having so many problems, she could have talked to me about it, or we could have gone to marriage counseling. Cheating was never the solution. She diverted the topic and started insisting on coming over. I cut the call and called Sandra. I told her what happened. Sandra asked me to ring her back and ask her to come over. She said she was going to come over too. She asked me to play along and see what her real motive was. So, I cut my call with Sandra and called up Ashley. She sounded so smug when she picked up. She said that she knew I would come around and that she'd be there in half an hour. Before Ashley came, Sandra arrived. I didn't know what her plan was, and there wasn't enough time for her to explain. She went inside and asked me to make Ashley sit in the dining room. Sandra said that she would make a special appearance in this drama. Ashley turned up about 40 minutes later, and it was obvious that she had made an effort to look good. She did look good. She got inside, kissed me, and was heading toward the bedroom where Sandra was, so I stopped her and asked her to sit in the dining room. She turned to me and pouted and said, "But why, sweetheart? Did I lose my right so easily? Was your love so weak? Will you not fight for us, baby?" At this point, Sandra came out of the bedroom. Ashley looked too stunned to speak and croaked out something like, "What the hell?" Sandra smiled at Ashley and said, "Ah. Finally, we meet. The woman who is dating my useless husband, Rob the cheater. Oh, and yes, you did lose your right to the bedroom." Ashley swung around at me, "How could you replace me so easily? You're sleeping with Rob's wife after taking away all my happiness. We had so many debts, and now we won't even get the damn trust fund money, and God knows who leaked the news, but now Rob is jobless. I might get fired too. You're just so selfish." Sandra piped in and said, "What do you mean we have debts? Is it like a joint loan thing? Were you helping Rob misplace and withdraw the funds, or what?" Ashley swung at her then, "Hell yeah, I was. I've supported Rob from day one. Do you think he could have planned something like that on his own? Obviously, I helped him. Unlike you, you evil witch, You've been nothing but condescending to him. That's why he chose me over you. Get out of here. How can you be here when your husband is jobless? Why the hell don't you give a statement in his favor and help him out? Sandra smiled sweetly and then told me that she thought I ought to send Ashley home. The job was done. I got the cue and held the door open for Ashley. Ashley stormed out while hurling a volley of abuse at us. When she left, I turned toward Sandra and asked, what just happened? Sandra pressed stop on a tape and then winked at me. Her eyes were shining. She said excitedly, "We got a confession, Aaron. We'll ruin them. I told you, I'm not letting both of them escape. That, my friends, is Sandra for you. She's clever and ruthless. If I were Ashley and Rob, I'd be terrified of her. She's just too good at what she does." Before heading out, Sandra confessed that, obviously, it was her who had leaked the news about Rob. I told her that her intelligence was rubbing off on me, and I had figured at least this much out, that she had something to do with it. Guys, I'll keep you updated. The game is finally beginning. Update 2, well, I'm back with an update 2 soon, I guess? But I couldn't wait to tell you guys. Sandra is an absolute ruthless killer. She sent the tape to Ashley's company with a detailed explanation of what was going on. She said in the note that someone who could go to that extent to fool the people who care about her wasn't a credible person to work in the company and would probably try to embezzle funds from them if she saw an opening. Sandra also knew one of the business partners in Ashley's firm, who happened to be her old friend. Sandra's friend abruptly pulled out of a deal that she was about to sponsor and said that there were certain members on the team whose credibility she doubted, so the deal was off the table. Ashley's boss was absolutely torching himself when the news reached him. They made a swift decision to save the deal. They fired the person who was responsible for it. That's it, just like that, my ex-wife is fired from the company. Now both of them are jobless and in debt. Sandra told me that Rob had been calling her nonstop, and when she didn't pick up any calls, he started texting her. She asked him to stop annoying her and blocked his number. I'm really enjoying this now. I've also been having my sessions, and my therapist tells me that Ashley should be a case study of narcissism. Lol, that was low-key funny. I laughed freely after a really long time. Anyway, I'll keep you guys updated. Oh, did I tell you guys that Rob was taken into custody, and apparently, Ashley had to break into her savings account to pay for his bail? Lol. Serves them right. Bye for now. Update 3, this morning, Sandra called me up. She was furious. Apparently, early in the morning, Rob had constantly rung her doorbell. He was drunk and kept on abusing her. Her security camera recorded the whole thing. When Sandra asked him to go away, he tried breaking in. He only went away when Sandra threatened to call the police. The worst thing about this whole incident was that, due to all the noise and everything, Sandra and Rob's daughter, Emily, woke up. She saw what was happening and is now traumatized. Divorce is usually hard on children, but seeing your father drunk on your doorstep, calling your mom names, and trying to break into the house is on a whole different level. Emily has since refused to leave her room. Sandra asked me if I could go over as she had to go to the police station and file a restraining order. She couldn't find a babysitter at such short notice. I told her I would and phoned in at work, asking them to call me if they needed anything. As soon as I reached, Sandra was out the door. She told me that if Emily came out, I should give her some food because she hadn't even had breakfast. As soon as Sandra left, I knocked on Emily's room. When nobody responded, I got a pin and broke the lock. I don't know why, but I was feeling paranoid in that silence. I was thinking of the worst case scenarios. I just couldn't sit still while the child was suffering. When I burst into her room, there was nobody there, and I was hyperventilating, but then a small movement caught my eye. Emily was hiding under the bed. A little girl of 3 or 4 years, who looked just like her mom except for her hair, was looking at me with eyes full of terror. She was stuttering in fear and somehow managed to ask me if I was her dad's friend and if Rob had sent me. I knelt down and introduced myself. I told her that instead of her dad, I was actually her mom's friend. She seemed to relax a bit at that. Then she started anxiously looking out the window and asked if her dad was gone. I said he was because her mom was like a tigress who would protect her cub with everything. She started crying then as she told me how she was afraid that Rob would break in and hurt her mom. I told her that I would never let that happen. My heart was breaking for this innocent child who had not only lost a dad but also seen what a horrible man her father was. I talked her into coming out and playing her favorite Disney movie. I heated up some lasagna and fed her. Sandra tells me that when she came back, she found Emily lying on my chest and sleeping peacefully and I, drooling into her favorite pillow. That night, when I was about to leave, Emily clung to my legs and wouldn't let me go. She kept crying, and then in the end, She said she was scared that Rob would turn up again and there would be no one to protect her mom. I joked that her mom didn't need protecting, but I shut up when Sandra rolled her eyes at me. It would be really difficult to explain a restraining order to a child, so I decided to stay the night. Emily slept peacefully, and so did I. The next morning, Sandra made us amazing pancakes, and I directly left for work. Emily made me promise that I would come to sleep at their house again that night. So, yeah, I guess that's my life now. I have to spend my nights at Sandra's house. Sandra is trying to find a good child psychologist but, as of now, has had no luck. I'll update you guys after the first hearing. Ciao. Update 4. Okay. Phew. It's been a long time since I last updated you guys, right? Well. The first hearing is done. What a layman like me has figured out is this: Ashley and Rob are absolutely cooked. Yeah. I mean it. Brother, they are cooked like barbecue. We have such alarming evidence against them that it's actually an open and shut case, but you know how courts are, so yeah, it's going to drag on for a while. Sandra believes that it won't take more than half a year. She also believes that both of them will be serving time in jail. As for the divorce, Ashley and Rob obviously won't get a penny. Rob has to pay child support as well. Ashley and Rob were job hunting but with no luck. I have news that Rob is working as a janitor in a nearby club. Outside the court, we saw Rob getting beat up by some loan sharks. Things are looking grim for that man. He's finished. When he saw Sandra outside the court, he ran to her and fell at her feet. He kept begging her to take him back, but by now, we know better. Sandra's lawyer tells us that the case is so in Sandra's favor that Rob won't even get visitation rights. You're too stupid to run this company, my stepdad roared, firing me from the family firm. Little did he know I had already siphoned its core assets, and would leave him with nothing but debt. It started with a spreadsheet error. Just one number that didn't add up in our quarterly reports. The kind of thing most people would brush off as a typo. But when you've practically grown up reading financial statements, when your dad taught you to double-check every decimal point before you learned to drive, you notice these things. I remember sitting there in my father's old office, my office now, technically, at 11:30 p.m., staring at that number until my eyes burned. $247,832.45 transferred to an account I'd never seen before. The transaction was labeled as equipment acquisition, Q3, but we hadn't bought any new equipment that quarter. I would know. I'd personally put all major purchases on hold while we updated our inventory systems. That was 3 months ago. Before everything went to hell. Before I discovered just how deep the rot in my father's company had spread. I should probably back up a bit. My name's Kingston, and until recently, I was the VP of company my father built from nothing over 30 years ago. He passed away 6 years back. Heart attack, right at his desk. The kind of death he probably would have chosen if he'd had the choice. Always said he'd rather die working than retire. Mom took it hard. Really hard. Which is why none of us objected when she started dating again after just a year. Your father would want me to be happy, she'd say. And she was right. What we didn't expect was Weston. Weston showed up at one of our charity galas, all expensive suits and perfect teeth. He had this way of making everyone feel important, like they were in on some private joke. Mom fell hard and fast. Within 6 months they were married. Within a year, he'd somehow convinced the board to make him CEO. Fresh blood, he called it. New perspectives. I didn't object much. I was focused on operations, on maintaining the quality standards Dad had set. Besides, Weston seemed to know what he was talking about. Our stock price went up. Investors were happy. But then things started changing. Small things at first. Long-time employees suddenly retiring. Supplier contracts getting shifted to companies I'd never heard of. That sort of thing. My sister Madison, she's in legal, was the first to notice something off about the new contracts. The terms are weird, King, she told me over coffee one morning. It's like they're deliberately complicated. And these companies, I can't find any real information about them. I started digging. Quietly. The more I looked, the more those little discrepancies kept showing up. Money moving in strange ways. Resources being allocated to projects that didn't seem to exist. Then came the comments. Little digs at first. Your father's methods are a bit outdated, don't you think? Weston would say in meetings. Or, this isn't a mom and pop shop anymore, Kingston. We need to think bigger. The real kicker came last week. I was reviewing some documents with my friend Jonah, who's been with the company since college, when Weston burst into my office without knocking. What are you doing with those files? He demanded, his face turning that particular shade of red I'd come to know well. Just reviewing the Q3 reports, I said, keeping my voice level. There are some inconsistencies I wanted to. Inconsistencies. He spat the word like it was poison. The only inconsistency here is having someone like you in a position of authority. You're just like your father. Stuck in the past, too scared to take real risks. Jonah tried to intervene, but Weston wasn't finished. You think I don't see you? Sneaking around questioning my decisions. This isn't your father's little workshop anymore. This is a real company now, and it needs real leadership. I stayed quiet, which only seemed to infuriate him more. My silence had always bothered him. Dad taught me that sometimes the best response is no response at all. You know what? He continued, his voice rising. I've had enough. The board meeting next week? I'm recommending your immediate termination. Let's see how well you understand business when you're out on your ass. He stormed out, leaving the door open behind him. Classic power move. Jonah let out a low whistle. You okay? I nodded, pulling up the file I'd been reviewing before the interruption. You still have access to the backup servers, right? Yeah, why? Because, I said, turning my screen to show him the transaction records I'd been piecing together. I think I finally know where that missing $250,000 went, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. Mom called that night. She was crying. Kingston, please, just apologize to Weston. He says you've been causing problems, questioning his authority. Can't you two just get along? For me, I thought about telling her everything right then. About the missing money, the shell companies, the pattern I'd started to see. But I could hear Weston's voice in the background, and I knew it wasn't the right time. It'll be okay, Mom, I said instead. Everything's going to work out exactly the way it should. After I hung up, I sent a message to Madison. Remember that contingency plan we talked about? It's time. Her response came seconds later. Already on it. Aubrey from HR sent over those old files you asked for. You're not going to believe what we found. I leaned back in my chair, my father's chair, and looked at the photo of him on my desk. He was standing in front of the factory on opening day, sleeves rolled up, that quiet smile on his face. The same smile he had when he taught me my first lesson about business. Trust your gut, son. But always have the paperwork to back it up. Don't worry, Dad, I've got the paperwork. And Weston has no idea what's coming. Update. First, thank you all for the overwhelming support on my previous post. Your messages helped more than you know. As promised, here's what's been happening over the past few months. Thanks for all the support on my last post. A lot has happened in the past week, and I need to get this down while it's fresh in my mind. Remember those old files Aubrey sent over? Turns out my father kept records of every business that tried to acquire our company over the years, including 3 failed takeover attempts by shell companies that, guess what, all lead back to Weston. He'd been circling our company like a vulture for nearly a decade before he ever met my mother. I found out about this at 3 a.m. last Tuesday, sitting in my sister Madison's apartment with takeout containers scattered across her coffee table. Jonah was passed out on the couch, laptop still open to financial records from Weston's previous business ventures. Look at this pattern, Madison said, spreading papers across the floor. Every company he's been involved with in the last 15 years. It's the same story. He marries into family businesses, gains control, and within 3 years they're either bankrupted or sold off for parts. My stomach turned as she pulled up news articles. Defunct factories in Ohio. A shuttered publishing house in Maine. A family restaurant chain in Florida. Now nothing but empty buildings and unpaid debts. The wives? I asked, already knowing the answer. Left with nothing. He's got a prenup with Mom too, doesn't he? I nodded. She said it was his idea, to protect the family business. The irony made me want to punch something. The next morning, I had a breakfast meeting with Mom at her favorite diner, the same place Dad used to take us for Sunday brunch. She looked tired, older than she should. Kingston, please, she said, stirring her coffee endlessly. Weston says if you just apologize, maybe step back from operations for a while. Mom, I interrupted gently, sliding my phone across the table. I need you to look at something. She stared at the screen, at the photo of Weston at another woman's wedding 15 years ago. His third wife, according to the records, the owner of that publishing house in Maine. This could be fake, she whispered, but I could see the doubt creeping in. There's more, a lot more. But I need you to trust me right now. Can you do that? She handed back my phone with shaking hands. I need time to think. I gave her a USB drive. When you're ready, everything's on here. Just be careful where you look at it. Back at the office, things were getting tense. Weston had started pulling people into mysterious meetings. Jonah texted me from the 3rd floor. He's going through old contracts. Looks scared. Good. Madison had been busy too. She'd quietly transferred copies of every important document to secure servers. If he tries to delete anything, she said, we'll know. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Thursday afternoon, Weston burst into the conference room during my meeting with our biggest client. What did you tell them? He demanded, face purple with rage. I stayed seated, kept my voice calm. I'm in the middle of a meeting, Weston. We can talk later. Like hell we can. You've been spreading lies, trying to undermine me? Our client, Mr. Chen, stood up slowly. He'd known my father for 20 years. Perhaps, he said, This is a good time to discuss the irregular charges on our last 3 invoices. Weston went pale. I smiled. Yes, let's discuss those. 2 hours later, I was officially fired. Weston made quite a scene in the lobby, shouting about my incompetence, my lack of vision, my sabotage of his leadership. I let him rant. Every word was being recorded by security cameras, every witness another nail in his coffin. You're too stupid to run this company, he roared, jabbing his finger in my face. Just like your idiot father. I caught Madison's eye across the lobby. She gave a slight nod. Everything was in place. You're right about one thing, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I'm not running this company. I paused, letting the moment stretch. But neither are you. Not anymore. His face went from rage to confusion to fear in the span of seconds. He must have seen something in my expression, because he turned and ran toward the elevator. Heading to the executive floor? I called after him. You should check your email first. The board's calling an emergency meeting. Something about unauthorized transfers and shell companies. Oh, and those contracts you've been trying to delete. We have copies. All of them. The elevator doors closed on his shocked face. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom. I watched the files. We need to talk. Another from Jonah. Board members are all confirmed for tomorrow. It's happening. And finally, from Madison. Just got word from the bank. All critical assets are secured. He can't touch them now. I packed up my office slowly, carefully. Put Dad's photo in my bag last. As I walked out, I passed the wall of company milestones. 30 years of history. Of family. Of trust. Weston thought he could take all of that away. Thought he could destroy another family's legacy and walk away rich. He has no idea what's coming tomorrow. Update 2. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. I arrived at 6:30. The early morning security guard barely glanced at my recently revoked badge. He'd known me since I was a teenager, back when I'd spend summers helping Dad with inventory. Some loyalties run deeper than corporate paperwork. I needed those quiet hours in the empty building. Not for last-minute preparations. Those had been in place for months. I just wanted to walk the factory floor one last time as my father's son, not as the person I'd have to become today. The assembly lines were silent, but you could still smell the metal and oil. Dad used to say you could tell a good factory by its smell. Money smells like hard work, son, he'd tell me. And hard work smells like steel. My phone buzzed. A message from Madison. Mom's ready. She's bringing the original documents. That was the piece I hadn't expected. Mom had spent all night in Dad's home office, digging through old files. She found something none of us had known existed. Dad's personal records of every shady takeover attempt Weston had made, including notes from private investigators. Your father knew, she'd told me last night, her voice hollow. He knew what kind of man Weston was. He was building a case against him. Why didn't he finish it? She'd looked away. He died before he could. The board members started arriving at 8:30. I watched from Dad's my old office, noting who came in together, who looked nervous, who seemed confident. Weston arrived last, at 8:57, wearing the same suit he'd worn to marry my mother. The meeting started exactly on time. Jonah had insisted on that. Everything by the book, he'd said. Give him no procedural grounds to contest anything. Weston took his seat at the head of the table, that practiced smile fixed on his face. I know yesterday's incident has caused some concern, he began, but I assure you. Before we continue, our longest-serving board member interrupted. We have some items that need immediate attention. She nodded to her assistant, who started distributing thick folders to everyone present. I watched Weston's face as he opened his copy. Watched the exact moment he realized what he was looking at. These documents, she continued, detail a pattern of financial misconduct that demands immediate action. Weston's laugh sounded forced. These are obviously fabricated. Kingston is just bitter about his termination. The documentation comes from multiple sources. Another board member cut in. Including your previous business ventures. That's when Mom walked in. She looked different. Stronger. She was carrying Dad's old briefcase, the one he'd used every day for 30 years. I think, she said quietly, you should see these too. She placed a stack of papers on the table. My late husband's personal investigation into your activities, dated 3 years before I ever met you. The blood drained from Weston's face. He started to stand, but Jonah was already there, placing a hand firmly on his shoulder. Sit down, Jonah said softly. We're just getting started. The next 2 hours were methodical. Madison presented evidence of fund transfers to shell companies. Jonah walked through the systematic dismantling attempts disguised as modernization. Aubrey provided testimony from employees who'd been threatened or bribed. But it was the documents from Dad that hit hardest. Pages of detailed notes, photos, bank records. Everything needed to expose Weston's pattern of marrying into companies and destroying them from within. This is ridiculous, Weston sputtered, but his voice had lost its authority. You can't prove. Actually, I spoke for the first time, we can prove everything. Including where the company's core assets have been for the past 3 months. His head snapped up. What? I smiled. Dad's smile. The one that never quite reached the eyes. Did you really think I was stupid enough to leave everything vulnerable while we built our case? Every critical patent, every major client contract, every piece of intellectual property. They were all transferred to a secure holding company. One you can't touch. You can't do that. The board approved it, the chairwoman finished. Unanimously. 3 months ago. But I never. You were too busy setting up your own transfers to notice ours, Madison added. Check your email. The SEC has some questions about those, by the way. The vote to remove him was unanimous. As security escorted him out, he was already on his phone, probably calling his lawyer. It wouldn't help. We had everything documented, everything legal, everything witnessed. Mom watched him go, twisting her wedding ring. Without a word, she took it off and placed it on the table. The next few hours were a blur of paperwork and procedures. By afternoon, the company had new leadership, new safeguards, and a clear path forward. Dad's company would survive. His legacy would continue. I found myself back on the factory floor as the day shift was ending. The familiar sounds of machinery powering down, of workers heading home, of a day's honest work completed. A text from Madison broke my reverie. You need to see this. Weston's other victims are coming forward. All of them. Another from Mom. Come home for dinner? There's something else in your father's files we need to discuss. And finally, one from an unknown number. This isn't over, boy. You have no idea what you've started. I smiled, breathed in the smell of steel and victory and headed for the exit. Let him try whatever he was planning. We were ready. Final update. The real revenge, as it turns out, wasn't in the takedown. It was in what came after. I'm writing this from my father's old lake house, where we used to spend summers when I was a kid. The same place where, 3 days ago, Mom found the last piece of Dad's investigation hidden in a false bottom of his tackle box. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up to that dinner Mom invited me to. She was waiting with an old leather journal, Dad's private records. There's something you need to see, she said, pushing it across the table. Page 47? It was a list of names, dozens of them, each one connected to a company Weston had destroyed. But these weren't just business records, they were people. Workers who lost pensions, families who lost homes, lives he'd ruined while walking away rich. Your father, Mom said quietly, was building a network, connecting victims, building a case bigger than just our company. I stayed up all night reading. Dad had everything, contact information, statements, evidence of fraud going back 20 years. He'd been preparing for the day Weston might target our company. The next morning, I started making calls. It snowballed faster than any of us expected. Madison's phone wouldn't stop ringing with people wanting to come forward. Jonah had to set up a separate email server just to handle the incoming documentation. But the real surprise came from the tackle box. Kingston, Mom said when she found it. I think your father knew he was sick. Long before the heart attack. This was his backup plan. Inside was a USB drive and a letter. Dad had been working with federal investigators, building a RICO case. The drive contained everything they needed, except for one key piece of evidence that only Weston himself could provide. Which he did, beautifully, when he tried to retaliate. The threatening text was just the beginning. Within days Weston started moving money. Big amounts. Exactly as Dad predicted he would. He's running his usual playbook, Jonah said, watching the transactions flag on our monitoring system. Trying to hide assets before the lawsuits hit. I smiled. Is he using his regular channels? Every single one. Perfect. See, those channels? We'd identified them months ago. Every transfer, every shell company, every offshore account, the feds were watching all of it. Waiting. They moved on a Wednesday morning. I was in a meeting when Madison burst in, grinning. Turn on the news. The headlines were beautiful. Multi-state financial fraud ring exposed. Weston's face was everywhere. But he wasn't alone. His entire network, the lawyers, the accountants, the fake companies, all of them caught in the same net. His perp walk made the evening news. Still wearing that expensive suit, but no smile this time. No smooth talks, just handcuffs and federal charges. But here's the part that would have made Dad proud. We didn't just take Weston down. We're rebuilding what he destroyed. Remember that holding company where we secured our assets? Turns out it's the perfect vehicle for helping other families recover their businesses. Madison's working with a team of lawyers, using our resources to help Weston's previous victims reclaim what they lost. The publishing house in Maine? Reopening next month. The restaurant chain in Florida? The original family just got their locations back. That factory in Ohio? Its workers are getting their pensions restored. Mom's doing better. She's turned her experience into something positive, starting a support group for others who've been manipulated by predatory partners. There's healing in helping, she says. Yesterday I found her in Dad's office, looking at old photos. He would be proud of you, she said. Not just for saving the company, but for finishing what he started. I picked up his photo from the desk, the one from opening day. We did it together, I said. Just like he would have wanted. This morning, I got another message from an unknown number. But this time, it wasn't a threat. Thank you. It read. My father lost everything to Weston 10 years ago. He didn't live to see justice, but I know he's resting easier now. There were dozens more like it. Each one a reminder of why we fought so hard. Weston's preliminary hearing is next week. The evidence is overwhelming. His lawyers are already talking plea deal, but the feds aren't interested. They want to make an example of him. As for me, I'm sitting on the lake house dock, watching the sunset. The same view Dad loved. Tomorrow, I'll go back to running the company. The right way. The way he taught me. But tonight, I'm just a son who finished his father's fight. And somewhere, I know Dad's smiling that quiet smile of his, the one that says everything's exactly as it should be.